Billy Sullivan of Sullivan Hockey and the London Knights joins to discuss what the Sharks are getting with Quentin Musty and Brandon Svoboda on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now and Inside the Rink, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube as well. And we are joined by Billy Sullivan, who is a North American scout for the London Knights, and also is a video kind of trainer, developer. He works with prospects and kind of watches video with them and helps them break down their game. And two of his clients so happen to be Sharks draft picks, Brandon Svoboda and Quentin Musty. So Billy talks about kind of who these guys are that Sharks are getting, kind of what they need to work on and what to expect from these guys. And then we kind of talk some a little bit bigger picture stuff of kind of development and all that fun stuff at the end. And now we bring in Billy Sullivan. Billy, how's it going today, buddy?
Very good, JD. Thank you for having me. How's it going out there?
It's getting hot out here. So, but I wanted to bring you on because you work with two new Sharks prospects, Quentin Musty and Brandon Svoboda. So tell the people, if they don't know, I know you work for the London Knights and you also have your own hockey kind of camp. What do you do? How are you connected with these guys?
Yeah, so I do work for the London Knights. That's my primary thing that I have going on during the season. Also from that, I guess you would put me in the skills coach kind of area of development. It's new, to be honest with you. I'm a video coach, essentially what it is, and I work with guys through video and analytical work. And the whole idea of what we have going on is to try to get the guys to see and think about the game a little bit differently. Nothing that I do or that we do is quantum physics, right? Like it's pretty straightforward, but it's kind of the mindset of when you are working on your shot, you just don't go out and do it one day. When you're working on improving your body, you just don't go to the gym one day. Same thing with video, right? You don't just watch yourself and watch other people who are like you to learn from them. You don't just do it once. You just kind of keep adding to it, and you allow the snowball effect to happen. And what it kind of is we put stuff into the mind and be like, you know what? Oh, okay, I see what he's saying, but I never really thought about that. And once you start working with high-end players like the guys we're going to be talking about here, you get all kind of neat ideas that are involved in the game. And there's so many different things to talk about. And having somebody else in your corner who's focused on you and watching just your shifts and watching is there to just worry about you improving in your game to help the team. It's really nice for the guys to have that, to know they have a corner man, essentially, if that makes sense.
Yes, perfect sense, right? I mean, it's what's this? It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to develop a prospect, and you got to, it's not just what they do in the gym. It's not just what they do watching the video. It's not what they do on the ice. It's everything coming together, and that makes perfect sense. So let's start with Quentin Musty, of course. Sharks fans over the moon right now after development camp, and so first of all, how long have you kind of known / worked with Musty?
So the first time I saw Q, he was playing for the Junior Sabres. He was in Pittsburgh, where I'm located, and he kind of popped up for a little showcase, and I just happened to go up and watch him. And then the following year, he went and played for the Junior Avalanche, so he could play up a division, playing U16. And I got pretty close with Mr. Musty, his dad, a good bit, just recruiting him for London, and also the X factor, I guess I kind of forgot to bring in. That was the COVID year that was going on. So down here in the States early on, I hope we don't get wrist slapped for saying this, but there was some underground skates going on, where you're not really allowed to. And Pittsburgh was kind of the hub for that because we're in the middle. The kids from the East could come out. So I got to know that 05 age group very well. And they would come down, got to know Q a little bit. And then Q, of course, went up to Sudbury. And then in last summer, is when I started working with Q a little bit. And I'd be lying to you if I said I did too much. Q does everything. But technically last summer, going into his draft year, is when we started working officially.
All right. So if you had to kind of break down, what do you think makes Quentin Musty such an intriguing prospect? What do you think is his biggest strength?
I think a quick way to end up broke and homeless is to bet on Quentin, bet on Q being just one thing. And when I hear a lot of people talking about Q, they bring up he's a goal scorer, or somebody will bring up, well, he's one of the best playmakers in junior hockey, which he is, or he's a competitor, like he's a vicious competitor, or he's a kid who really is a team-oriented guy. Q is not one thing, and Q's a hockey player. Q's a gamer. Q has so much that he gives every single shift. One thing that I really like when it comes down to just bringing up semantics a little bit here is when you work with a guy for a little bit and he's coming into the zone, he's coming over the blue line. Generally speaking, based on how fast he's going, his pace that he's bringing in, who he's going up against, what the numbers are, just all the general things that are going on the ice, you can kind of get a vibe of what somebody's about to do. Okay, this guy's going to try to drop his shoulder, drive far post, get a guy to stop him. Oh, it's not going to work. He's going to cut back. He's going to hit the second wave, or he's going to bring his feet going up. He's coming back up high, or a guy is just going to slow up and try to make a play in front of the D, or he's not really confident. He's probably going to chip in the corner. There's a million possibilities. And generally speaking, when you watch a guy enough, you kind of get a vibe of what he's about to do. Quentin Musty is one of the most creative hockey players that's not in the NHL right now. I do not know what Q is about to do coming over the blue line, and I mean that in the best of ways. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most creative hockey players when that puck is on his stick. I mean, I'm sure you guys got a little hint of that this past week, right?
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you want, right? It's like a pitcher who can disguise all of his pitches, right? You want a guy who can throw a fastball and then like 100 miles an hour and then looks the exact same thing. And then you have like the changeup coming on him. And that's right. You don't want the guy who can, exactly what they're going to do every time he steps into the offensive zone, like just that one trick pony type of player, right?
Just kind of stemming off that a little bit, JD, is like one thing you don't know when you don't know a kid, but there's competitive, and then there's what Quentin Musty is, right? Like Q, when I don't know, what's going to happen over the next few years, nobody does. But let's say we're in 2027 and the Sharks are back in the playoffs, and Q has a year or two under his belt in the show, maybe more, and you're in the playoffs and you're in the second round of the playoffs. I can't speak for all the other players who went in the draft, right? For most of them anyways. But I can tell you for certain, I want Q on my bench in the playoffs. I want that guy when it comes down to the games that matter. I want him not only with all his competitive or with his skill and his ability. And yes, of course, he has things to work on, but what he brings between the ears, and he wants to get better, and the fact that he just brings it so heavy, and he's willing to put people on his back to get there, or he can use you. He wants to win, and that isn't always the case, and he has that in spades, and you'll find that out.
All right. So you mentioned stuff he has to work on, of course, right? No 17, 18-year-old kid is ready right away. So what do you think is going to be the thing that he probably attacks the most as he continues to develop and goes from a junior player to a professional hockey player?
Well, I mean, like I said, when he's extremely creative, right? And you have to be at the next level. Not too many people are just, McDavid and being able to take off and get away, right?
Yeah.
So as you get from junior hockey to the next level, we have to start to figure out what works. And I'm not worried about him in figuring that out in too long of a time, but there is going to be an adaptation period, just like for anybody who's coming into the NHL as a teenager or young 20s, right? So that's the thing. Q can get more explosive with his first three steps. So he can be a little more, get going. His pace is very good. His lateral mobility is better than people want to give it credit for. His skating is better than what people want to give it credit for. With that said, he's a big boy. He likes to move. He needs to be, or he's going to be a little bit more explosive as he continues to work on it. And he is a lot to handle, in all situations because of his IQ and because of his offensive instincts. He is a whole lot to handle. And if he can start to separate when he gets that first step going, he's a player that, sky's the limit for him. I'm biased, but I think he really has the, that kind of potential.
All right, guys, before we finish up with Billy and we talk about Brandon Svoboda and why Billy thinks he has middle six potential, do need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at Athletic Greens. And if you are looking for a way to keep up with your proper nutrition, which is really hard, right? You're busy, you're stuck at your desk all day, you're eating whatever you can just to get through the day. Why don't you just start your day with the ultimate daily nutritional insurance? A single scoop of AG1 in a glass of water, you can do just that. You absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. Athletic Greens is created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up with a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him over $100 a day, which, as you know, just isn't sustainable. So he created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was, and now he can help you for just $3 a day. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenient daily nutritional. To make it easy, Athletic Greens can give you a free 1-year supply of their immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right. So the big question is, why do you think he fell to 26? Especially when I know public scouts aren't private scouts, but a lot of public scouts had him as a top 15, potentially top 12 player, and he fell to 26. Why? What are people getting wrong here?
I think, listen, we could talk about this for 6 hours alone, right? I honestly, and again, I'm biased, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth and get in trouble, but I wouldn't have, between 6 and 28, I would have been like, if somebody would have taken Q in that frame, I would have been like, yep, sure, good pick, I get it. And I know that's really high up in the draft, but in potential wise and his ability wise, that's where, that was, I think that would have been reasonable based off of just everybody of the players I know. Now, why he didn't go, we were in January and February, and Quentin Musty had rattled off 17 game point streaks with 30-some points. And keep in mind, like the OHL, best development league in the world, 17-year-olds aren't putting up 2 points a game for a quarter of the season right in a row very often, right? And Q was doing that, and you'd see stuff online about who people have him in the 40s and 50s, or he's a second rounder. And I asked somebody in the outside scouting world, and even some of the inside scouting world too, I felt like a lot of the negatives that were being put on Q were from the season before. And people weren't necessarily watching what he was doing at that moment. And I get it, because I understand all the outside scouts who makes the lists and rankings and everything. They can't watch everybody. I don't know everybody. Nobody knows everybody. It's why NHL have scouting staffs, right? And I feel like there was an aura or a persona around Q for a little bit the year before. And for whatever reason, nobody was taking into account what he was doing and where and what his potential was, and how the NHL teams think, and the fact that this kid is a 6'2" skilled monster who has competitiveness for days. Like it was, I honest to God can't say why it is what happened. I just know, if I'm a San Jose Sharks fan, I'm thrilled about it. And again, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but when we look back on this in 5 years, I can, if you made me say right now, Q is going to find a way. He's going to be one of the better players in this draft. I know we have Bedard and everybody, and I'm not saying where he would be, but he's going to be one of them.
Yeah, when we do the redrafts in 5 years, it's going to be a how did he fall to here type of guy. So Let's talk about another one of your clients, Brandon Svoboda, who the Sharks picked in the third round. Going to be heading back to the USHL next year. So, of course, we on Locked On Sharks have done a full profile on Musty. I think Svoboda is a little kind of a bit of a more unknown, especially as a third round pick. So, kind of the same question with Svoboda. When did you meet him? How long have you been working with him?
So this one's a little bit different because I run a ball hockey facility here in Pittsburgh, and Brandon grew up playing ball hockey. So I got to find it. But there's a photo of me handing Brandon a ball hockey trophy when I was 10 inches taller than him. And now, fast forward to the draft, Brandon's 10 inches taller than me. So I've always known of Brandon. He played at a local rink playing ball hockey, got into ice hockey, and obviously is what he is. And I started coaching him in ball hockey a few summers ago, and started doing the work with him on video as well over these past couple years. So I've known Brandon longer than just about anybody. And before we get into his hockey stuff, like the whole family is some of the world's best people. Like Dad is truly fantastic. Mrs. S is the best. Brandon is salt of the earth, nicest people. The brother's fantastic. You're not meeting a better family than the Svobodas. And those are the kind of kids that are easy to work with and help and root for. You know what I mean?
Yes. All right. So what type of player do you think the Sharks are eventually going to be getting out of Svoboda? And what do you think, again, what do you think is going to be his calling card as he continues to grow and become hopefully an NHL player?
Yeah. I saw something on somebody was evaluating some of the Sharks picks, and Brandon was brought up because of his numbers last year as a guy who could be bottom six kind of thing. Understand that Brandon was on a very good championship-winning USHL team. The USHL is a very old junior league, and they did a great job. Jason Deskins and their whole staff did a fantastic job over there getting young players involved in a championship caliber team. Brandon wasn't in a situation to necessarily carry the offense, and he shouldn't have been. Next year, I believe he will be. But putting Brando in a box and say he's a bottom six. And I know how hard it is to play top six in the NHL, but please understand the kind of skill that this kid has in his hands and in between his ears is unbelievable. It's right up there with, higher end in this draft. He just may need a little bit more time and put it all together. But Brandon, when the puck gets on his stick, he has the capability of making some people look stupid at this level, and that's not always the case. The one thing that I can kind of say is when he gets to a new level, he needs a little bit of an adjustment period, because when Brandon was younger, even up through last year, he had what we would call passenger tendencies, right? Where he would be unbelievable when he had the puck. And then he would end up watching too much of the hockey game for 85, 90% of the game or less. But he would watch too much. Like, Brando, you're not going to get drafted if, we're watching hockey. I don't care how smooth and skilled and great you are and everything. What was neat is when he got to junior hockey, the pace and the tenacity of the USHL forced him to kind of pick between, am I going to continue doing this, or, excuse my language, am I going to work my ass off away from the puck to be involved in the play to help this team? And I always thought if he was put in that situation, he would elevate his game to a next level. And that slowly but surely started to happen this year, because the rest of the game forced him to become a more well-rounded player. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, right? I think that's, you see that a lot with players, right? Kind of that, like, stepping into a new league or stepping into a new situation, sometimes it takes a little bit for them to kind of dip their toes into it. And I think for, maybe a guy like that, where you might have to kind of push him off the ledge if, you're talking about like the pool thing, like, when our parents, I'm sure your dad was probably like my dad, where they taught you by swimming, I just throw you in the pool and you're going to figure it out, compared to nowadays where it's a little bit more, But I mean, I think with the guys like Svoboda, that sounds, putting him in a situation to succeed, right? Of kind of working your way on the bottom, and you're also developing skills there, right? I mean, everyone talks about offense. I'm the biggest defenses for nerds go score points player person ever, but like, you still need those skills, especially if you're going to be a center going forward. So if you can build those baseline skills of I know how to play in my own end. I know how to play in the corners, all that stuff. And then you continue to develop your offense as you get more opportunities. That sounds perfectly great to me, right? All right, guys, before we finish up with Billy and we discuss kind of just some bigger development questions, do need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our good friends over at Birddogs. And if you're like me, right? It's summer now. It's hot. I think it's like 115 here in the Central Valley. If you're anywhere where it's hot, right, you're wearing the shorts right now. It's just too hot to not wear shorts. Birddogs, the way to go. Their fabric is an anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. They're great for whatever you're doing, right? You guys know my Saturdays are pretty busy, especially as a dad. I'm coaching or I'm helping with soccer in the morning, right? Then when you got to run to Target, you got to run to Costco, you got to run to a bunch of different places. And then, you're either grilling or maybe you're out at the brewery or maybe you're out, enjoying one of the local restaurants and you want something that just kind of fits whatever you have to do because you're not changing your pants all day to whatever your situation. Birddogs, the way to go. I really enjoy the built-in underwear. It keeps things cool, keeps things from kind of sticking and squishing together. So go grab yourself a pair of Birddogs. I promise you won't want to take them off. And when you do go, make sure you guys go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or use the promo code LockedOnNHL and they'll give you a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or use the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti style tumbler. Again, you won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you.
And keep in mind, too, 100%, by the way, but keep in mind, too, when you get to the National Hockey League level, the guy who was in and out of the lineup was a monster in junior hockey and college hockey production-wise. You know what I mean? Like, we were watching the Stanley Cup, and Vegas's third and fourth defenseman, who had 16 and 18 points over the course of the season, had 77 in the OHL and 75, you know what I mean, in the WHL. So it is very difficult to get there. Brandon's upside, in my opinion, is a middle six National Hockey Leaguer, be a second or third liner. Could he go higher? Of course. Could he go lower? Of course. But the fact of the matter is you don't make them like Brandon too much anymore. Everybody wants a 6'3" smooth skating defense or skating center who understands the game and sees the game. And Brandon used to have a little bit of a kind of tick where he would get ahead of the play a little bit. And he's done such a better job of coming up with the play and being involved in all areas of the game. And it's so nice that when he does that and you add in his natural skill and ability, guys, there's a potential there for not only him to, play in the NHL one day, but once it starts to come together over these next 3 years, I believe you're going to start to see why San Jose traded up so high to get him. And again, I'm biased, but I've known the kid since he was 8 years old, and the kid has a switch that he flips in during a game. Nicest kid in the world, most skill in the world. And when he gets into the game, he can be a prick a little bit, and he's got to embrace that a little bit more. He's a competitor, needs to embrace everything, and he's a fantastic kid. We're all rooting for him.
Yeah, that competitive skill that Mike Kerr has been preaching since he got here. So wanted to ask you some kind of bigger picture questions right now, since you're kind of you got your foot in a lot of areas here with like the OHL, and you work with guys who go to college and stuff like that. So when you have players who kind of go the juniors route, like your Quentin Musty, and then you have guys who go like Svoboda who go the college route, is there a big difference in kind of preparing them for that, right? We know NCAA tends to be a little bit more kind of grittier feel, while junior, you're playing usually against kind of younger players. So preparing them for those routes, like what goes into that?
Well, the style of game is the important part for me, I guess, to answer that question, because a lot of time the college route is brought up for the age, and I don't think it's necessarily the age that's necessarily the most important part of what we're talking about when developing players there. It's style wise, and I call college hockey the gauntlet for the high end kids, right? Because the higher end kids, when they go to college at 18 and 19 years old, you're playing against kids who are 24, 25, 26 years old and can bench 250, you know what I mean? But maybe necessarily don't have the NHL tools, but it's hard, it's physical. So we throw them in and we say, go survive this and do everything you can and you're going to be ready. And the major junior side of things is a completely different mindset. This is just my opinion, by the way. The major junior where we do, or I'm sorry, in college, they do the gauntlet and they say, survive this. Major junior has mimicked the NHL game, and then they play and they play and they play and they play. And we want to make our skill players, okay, go touch the puck 7,000 times this season. So when you get to the National Hockey League, you're ready to go. Major junior is reps and style wise similar to the NHL. College hockey is a war, and they both work. Okay. In my opinion, and again, I'm super biased, but
the guy who works for the London Knights in the
exactly. But at the same time, my son, if I have a son in the future, what are the chances my son's going to be one of the a top 3 or 4 round NHL draft pick? So I would like my son probably to go to college. However, if I have a son and he ends up being a top caliber kid and is a top 3 or 4 round kid, like, get your ass up north. You know what I mean? Like, go play up there because it's the skill-based game. So when it comes in time to developing, at least for the little bit, the very small percentage that I'm involved with these kids, what we do is we really focus on things like how can we get the puck? It's going to be different in both sides. You know, really, how do you present yourself on the ice to get the puck? Where are you having the most success? We do a lot of, I don't want to say analytics, but you know, if you don't mind, I'll just give you an example. We work with a kid who, in his draft year, 85 or 80% of his scoring of his scoring chances that he was involved with came from the D zone and neutral zone because he skated so well, right? So we learned 2 things from that. One, keep trying to get the puck in the D zone and neutral zone. You do great at it. But 2 is, why aren't you creating more in the offensive zone? And when we started to break it down and look at all of his touches and analyzing it, we realized, you know, hey, Joe Schmo, when you touch the puck with your feet railroading and you're not moving, you just cycle back, you pass it up to the point, and you're creating offense 0% of the time. But remember, you're one of the world's best skaters. You keep moving your feet and you get that puck in stride in the ozone. You're now creating chances 65% of the time or 65% of the time when you do it. And that may not seem complicated because it's not, but until somebody shows you that and explains it to you and you see it over and over again, you don't really think about that kind of stuff when you're just playing and working your butt off to try to go. So the difference between the 2 places is just seeing how we can help the individual players in their particular area, you know?
All right. So last question before I get you out of here. So of course, right, you know, all these prospects, they have their development camp, right? They meet with the teams and they're usually given like, hey, you know, we love you. Of course, we drafted you. We want you to work on, you know, X, Y, and Z. Right. And then they go back to their junior teams or their college or whoever they go back to. Right. And those guys are also kind of like, we need you to work on this, because they're trying to win games. Right. How does that kind of marry the long term, what we're trying to work you on with compared to with the like short term, like, hey, we're trying to win games today type of development, right?
Yeah. So I see what you're saying. But 9 times out of 10, the 2 will go hand in hand, right? We're not working on anything. You know, whenever I work with guys, and I'm sure the same with all the skills coaches, we're not working with anything to spite the team that they're playing for, despite the team that they're going to, you know. So 90% of the time, I'd say even more, the team, what we're working on and what the NHL teams want them to work on is going to help. Is going to help at the next level. So that's an interesting question. I haven't had it come up too much, but it's very interesting. I mean, I'm sure when it does come up and you want to do something despite the team you're playing for, that might be tough. But they usually go hand in hand.
Makes sense. Billy, thank you so much for your time. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, so no problem. We have 2 places on Instagram at Sullivan Hockey. I lucked out with that little thing there. And then our website is sullyhockey.com. And again, like, thank you for having me on, and I can't wait to watch these two guys, eventually wear the teal. And I'll tell you what, they're hockey players. So I'm so happy for them, and thank you for having me on to talk with you a little bit about them.
Oh, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much, buddy. Thanks again to Billy. Great to hear from him. Great to hear about these guys who, it seems like the Sharks made excellent picks with both Quentin Musty and Brandon Svoboda. I know a lot of people thought maybe Svoboda was a little bit of a reach, but hearing about from Billy about like the type of player they're getting Svoboda, and he did what he was asked on the USHL, and I think we're going to see a big offensive step from him before he goes out and this year with Youngstown, and then especially when he goes off to Boston College. So really intriguing to hear. I thought, kind of that different mindset of how you prepare guys for going to play in the OHL versus how you prepare guys for the NCAA, and where it's like a gauntlet in the NCAA and just survive because you're playing, guys who might be 4 or 5 years older than you, while the OHL you're playing, playing guys your age, but you're playing, basically twice the amount of games. So really, really, again, thank you to Billy. Go check out, Sullivan Hockey. He works with a bunch of guys, so I wouldn't be surprised if next year, the Sharks draft a couple more of his guys again next year. So, but that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. Going to, kind of do a little hodgepodge episode of some of the rumors and, what we're hearing right now is the Sharks, could they be involved in Tarasenko? We'll look at the potential Kevin LeBanc trade that is out there right now. So going to kind of just play a little bit of catch up tomorrow on some of these other rumors. And then next week, we're officially off season mode. We'll be down to 3 episodes a week until training camp, but that doesn't mean the content's going to get worse, and we got plenty of good stuff coming up. I've got some guests lined up here over the next couple of weeks, some big time guests lining up over the next couple of weeks. So again, make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and Threads at Locked On Sharks, and you can follow me on Twitter and on Threads at My Fry Hole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.